And a good midday on this Tuesday. Roger Hill, VELCO Weather Hazards Forecaster, the VELCO Weather Hazards Outlook. Looking at the country at large, what we can see here is some pretty warm temperatures, also some very dry conditions. Snow has relented, generally along the spine of the Green Mountains and points east. There still exists some, and certainly up in the mountains, but generally west of the spine is where we're finding high fire danger, also up portions of the Connecticut River Valley. What we're looking at here is current temperatures. Looking at dew point temperatures, you can see just how dry, really, almost coast-to-coast conditions are. The only real humidity is down in southeastern Texas, down in parts of Florida, and so on and so forth. We're basically influenced by sinking motion in the atmosphere with this very large ridge of higher pressure. That's kind of controlling good portions of the country. We're still seeing a little bit of cloudiness kind of in the sort of north of the ridge of higher pressure on its periphery, coming in out of Canada with the northwesterly flow. And indeed, there could even be a few sprinkles. Most of this is just falling as virga. We're not looking at hardly any precipitation. You might see a couple spotty little sprinkles here. And we have that for the case here up in the northern tier regions of Vermont late today. However, it's going to be few and far between. Looking at the latest computer model, we have the Canadian forecast model on the right-hand side, deterministic European on the left. Let's run that model. This is valid 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and we can see again just a few sprinkles with these little shortwave troughs, not providing a whole lot in the way of precipitation, relatively dry conditions. Still cold enough to produce snow a little further to the north as expected, and some colder weather in some of the mountain territories of the northwest. But overall, this is a little frontal boundary here. You can kind of see where that kind of drifts in, kind of separating two different air masses, and that's what's going to be pushing in here late in the day on Wednesday. And then beyond that, this is a kind of a warm frontal structure that's going to lift north and east. And as it lifts north and east, it's going to supply us with a whole lot of warmer air that's been kind of circulating and building up out in the plain states and into the Midwest, the Mississippi Valley, and so on and so forth. And it's going to be shooting sort of northeast bound. And we're going to be the beneficiaries of that decent amount of warmer temperatures, basically popping out in the 70s. There might even be a couple runs to try to make close temperatures close to 80. So all of that taking place. This is valid on Thursday. And you can see that we're still basically protected by this area of higher pressure and the leftovers. However, it is in the process of collapsing as we get into basically Friday night. And by the time we get into Saturday, we have an isolated thunderstorm or two. It's going to start to creep in. This is our next major weather maker. It's going to be beyond the period for Sunday night. But what you can see, there's going to be a pretty good push of the jet stream that's going to basically spin up this area of low pressure. And then that frontal boundary is going to kind of bow on out. And as it bows on out, you can see here, this is valid basically Sunday night with a little bit more of a juiced up air mass. The Canadian model, not quite as fast on that, thinking it's going to be a little slower. But you can kind of see something is going to develop in the vicinity of the northeastern Great Lakes. And, well, it bodes well to get a little bit of snow and much cooler temperatures back into the region. This is going to be very high altitude kind of business, though. It's really nothing to worry about right now. It's just kind of an indicator that we're going to return to kind of colder April conditions once we get past probably somewhere around Sunday night and into most of the following week. GFS ensemble centered on Barre Montpelier EF-NAP Airport. This is 3-hourly QPF. You can see just a couple little sprinkles here, and then some drier weather to follow. The total QPF really doesn't happen until we get into Sunday night, and that's where you see these rises here. And with the deterministic model of the GFS, you can see that rise maybe around 1/2 an inch, maybe a little bit more toward 3/4 of an inch. That's a long ways around the road beyond the period, and we're looking at relatively dry conditions. Now, temperature-wise, you can see that we also warm things up. In terms of dew point temperatures, kind of follow suit. We're looking at dew points that might get into that sort of 50 to 55 degree range. You start getting into those dew points that are about that warm, you start to have to watch out for a little bit of thunderstorm activity. But again, we're looking at generally dry weather through the period. Now, putting convective available potential energy, you can see that the higher days here, we're not looking at any precipitation to speak of. So that's the good news. No real issues for any severe weather or anything like that. But checking the precipitation types, it's going to be pretty much all rain until we get after this coming weekend, where temperatures do cool down at that point. European model has this basically well below normal to below normal, and indeed that's what the 7-day total QPF is starting to show. However, that tags on about a ½ an inch of precipitation, and what you're seeing here, all of this falls basically on Sunday night into the day on Monday. Warmer than normal, almost coast to coast, but you can see up in Canada and of course affecting our region, and that's how it's going to stay. Things are going to start to cool down in the west, and that's going to start to work its way our way, but that's going to be after several days yet to come. This is the next 5 days of meteorological output statistics, or MOS, and what you can see is that we're starting to see some inroads here of colder weather. However, we're going to be running anywhere from 15 to 18 degrees above normal across Vermont and the northeast U.S. Looking at it 3 days later, pretty similar, around 12 degrees above normal, maybe dampened down just a little bit, weighted the next 3 to 7 days out. And leaving you with this is daily snow extent for North America only. You can see how we had a pretty snowless September into October, and then things started to pick up a little bit as we headed into the month of November. A little bit into December, and then things kind of fell below or kind of straddled. And then they went above normal once again in March, and that was our biggest snow month here in my location in Worcester. Picked up over 40 inches of snow for the month, and things have come down considerably after that point. That's it from here, Roger Hill, Wuthering Heights. Thanks for watching.